Joining us now, former Democratic congressman from the state of Texas, Beto O'Rourke, where Texas is suffering greatly due to these power outages. Do you know any new information about an end in sight for those who are without power and some even without water and some hospitals that are struggling? I know where you are specifically, there isn't as much of a problem, which you can explain as well.
That's right. El Paso, where I am, is not part of ERCOT, which is the electricity grid that most of Texas operates under. But in terms, Mika, of news for the rest of Texas, I wish I had better news. It was in the 20s in Dallas and Fort Worth and Houston and San Antonio last night, with many millions without power and millions more under boil water notices. Which begs the question, if you don't have power, if you don't have electricity, if you don't have gas, how are you going to boil that water, if you have any that's coming out of your faucet? Now, many people don't even have water right now, and the utilities are unable to predict with any certainty when folks will have power back. People have been going not hours, but days without electricity or being able to warm their homes. Luckily, Texas has warming centers set up that folks can go to. And some of them, they can get a hot meal, they can get water, but it's hard if you don't have internet, if you don't have TV, if you don't have access to the information sources that'll let you do that. I joined about 100 volunteers last night to make calls across Texas to senior citizens to connect them with those warming centers, with a hot meal, with water if they need it, and other assistance. But we're going to need more of that if we're going to help our fellow Texans in the midst of this crisis.
How do you assess how the governor has handled this, and also the Texas leaders in Washington, specifically Ted Cruz, and also the representatives here? Have they been on the same page?
I was listening to what Mike Barnicle had to say about governance, and it really struck a chord, because in Texas you have an example of what happens when a state is governed by those who do not believe in government to begin with. The Republican Party, as you know, Mika, has had absolute control of the state Senate, the state House, the governor, the lieutenant governor, every statewide office for the last 20 years. So the decisions to deregulate ERCOT and to ensure that it's not connected to the national grid, to fail to weatherize our power generators, whether it's coal or gas or nuclear or wind or solar, or the transmission lines that carry that energy to us, the inability to ensure that there's excess capacity for emergencies like these to power our homes and businesses and lives. These are all decisions that they made. And now, of course, they're pointing the finger at Congressman Ocasio-Cortez, the Green New Deal, everyone and everything except for themselves, which does not inspire confidence that we're going to get our way out of this or learn from these mistakes. We had a terrible winter storm in 2011 that caused similar rolling blackouts across Texas. You would have thought 10 years later, with many of the same people in power, we would have learned from that mistake, invested in our infrastructure, and kept our fellow Texans safe. But that's not what's happening in the state right now. Many are left to their own devices and relying upon competent local leaders like Lina Hidalgo, the county judge in Harris County, or Clay Jenkins in Dallas. So this is a tough situation, but Texans are tough people. And I think working together, we're going to get our way out of this.
Congressman, it's Willie Geist. Good morning. Good to see you. Yeah, we've been talking over the last couple of days about the strange impulse of a governor whose state is collapsing, rushing on to Sean Hannity's show to blame a congresswoman from New York City. But we can put that to the side for a moment. Let's say, for argument's sake, you were governor of Texas, or that you were running. Are you running for governor, by the way?
I'm not.
You're not. Okay. You're not planning on running for governor?
I haven't really thought about it. And for me right now, does not be like the time to think about it.
Fair enough. So let's say you were governor, though. What's a realistic plan that you could put in place right now with this emergency in the state of Texas? What needs to change in terms of the way energy is produced and distributed in the state?
I'd do four things. One, I would either incentivize or mandate that the power generators in Texas store additional capacity. In this deregulated ERCOT market, there is no incentive and no requirement to keep additional capacity for weather emergencies like these. And because of our changing climate, due to our emissions and excesses and inaction, we are likely to see more severe storms and droughts and natural disasters that will require that capacity. So let's make sure that it's there. Second, I would connect ERCOT and the rest of Texas to the national grid so that when we have excess power, we can sell it to the rest of the market and plow those profits back into weatherizing and improving the generation and transmission in Texas. And when we're in an emergency like this, we can draw down power from the rest of the country. Third, I would require those generators to weatherize their systems, which is what we should have done after the freeze in 2011 and what we should absolutely do right now. And the fourth, and perhaps the most important thing, is I would take the science and climate change seriously. I would protect the most vulnerable communities, and then I would invest to make sure that Texas is leader for the country in redesigning our energy and electricity systems to make sure that we arrest the changing climate before it is too late. Because after Hurricane Harvey, after the severe droughts in the Panhandle, after this storm in 2021 that we are not out of yet, we should know by now that this is our future unless we change our course. So those are four things that we could do as Texans.
Hey, thanks so much for watching our YouTube channel. You can follow up on today's top stories and breaking news or catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.